Welcome to R&R Living Life. In this episode we leave Katherine and make our way along the Victoria Highway towards Timber Creek. We were planning on travelling around 300 kilometres today, and as per usual on travelling days we were packed and had left camp before 8. Making our way back through Katherine and onto the Victoria Highway, past the showgrounds, North Australian helicopters, the rail overpass and past Manbaloo Airfield. I am not sure what I had expected the country to look like, only that I knew it was good cattle country, so found it vastly different from the Barkly Tablelands and the Gulf country of North Queensland, as it was further north than where we had previously been in Northern Australia. The Victoria Daly region is located in the northwest section of the Northern Territory, covering an area of approximately 154,000 square kilometres. Land within the Shire was divided in 2007 into bounded areas for the purpose of creating an address for a property. Most bounded areas are called localities, while those associated with Aboriginal communities are called communities. The area is mainly rural, with some defence areas and a number of small townships and small indigenous communities. Here the landscape appeared to be generally flatter, though it was difficult to see beyond the initial tree line, but looked very much like a mixture of tropical savanna woodlands dominated by native grasses like black speargrass, kangaroo grass and mitchell grass, interspersed between eucalypts and acacias. We stopped at the Buntine Memorial, located on the corner of the Victoria Highway and the old Delamere Road to Top Springs, now renamed the Buntine Highway. The memorial comprises a 23-ton boulder standing on a concrete plinth, with an engraved picture of a B model road train and a small plaque to mark the opening of the Buntine Highway, named to commemorate the road train pioneer Noel Buntine. We had passed areas where early reduction burning had been carried out, reducing the fuel load, and in areas green pick was already evident. The Victoria River region has an area of approximately 27,300 square kilometres. The locality's boundaries and name were gazetted on the 4th of April 2007. Its name is derived from the river of the same name which flows through the locality from the south to the north, and which was named in 1839 by Captain Wickham and Stokes of HMS Beagle after Queen Victoria. The scenery was forever changing. We were now passing through ranges, some having recently been burnt, making for some stunning contrasts between the country. Bare red earth bounded by speargrass covered slopes, trees burnt in shades of brown against the unburnt green trees. Each range was vastly different, some with rocky outcrops, while others covered in vegetation. There were straight stretches of highway, then we would either crest a hill or take a curve, and the scenery would be different again. We could usually make out where watercourses were by the trees that grew along the banks. It intrigued me the lines of rock ledges that stood out across the top of hills where weathering had occurred. The geology of the area is considered to be very old sedimentary rocks, like sandstone and siltstone, which were laid down in ancient shallow seas over 1 billion years ago, that were then compressed over time into solid rock. The different rock types often form distinct parts of the landscape, with the more resistant sandstone layers tending to form rugged, rocky ridges and escarpments, while the softer siltstone forms the valleys and low-lying areas. We were now nearing the Victoria River crossing and the Victoria River Roadhouse, a tiny settlement located on the Victoria Highway about 190 kilometres west of Katherine. The settlement itself is little more than a roadhouse and campground, but the scenery along the highway as it winds past immense escarpments split by the mighty tidal Victoria River, I can honestly say was some of the most stunning we had seen. The river rises in low sandhills north of Hooker Creek, flowing north and northwest across a region of hills and basins to enter into the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, part of the Timor Sea. The gorge system is more than 40 kilometres long and cleaves the Stokes Range near the Roadhouse, where its blood-red escarpments tower up to 200 metres above the highway. Fed by its major tributaries, the West Baines, Wickham, Gordon, Armstrong and Camfields rivers, the river drains a basin of just over 70,000 square kilometres. Estuarine saltwater crocodiles inhabit the area in large numbers, but we did not see any along its banks. As we left the Roadhouse, we crossed a huge floodplain that bordered the escarpment before we were dwarfed by the towering cliffs as we wound our way along the highway towards Timber Creek. The layers of rock formations could be seen even where the hills were covered in vegetation. We could make out where birds roosted in places on the sheer jagged rock formation of some of the cliff faces. It really was a stunning area with vast regions of rugged terrain, a landscape of spectacular sandstone ridges, soaring escarpments, serpentine gorges, flat-topped mesas and rolling hills. This varied and impressive topography is the result of marine deposits from 1,500 million years ago and their subsequent uplift and erosion by the elements. The European history of the area began with the discovery of the Victoria River by Captain J.C. Wickham and Lieutenant John Stokes in 1839. This was followed in 1855-56 by the North Australian expedition led by Augustus Gregory, and then the Alexander Forrest expedition of the Wickham River area in 1879. These endeavours led to the establishment of a pastoral industry in the Victoria River District, and there are numerous sites throughout the area providing a tangible reminder of this early European history. We stopped at the Bronco panel, highlighting the Northern Territory's beef cattle industry, which began in March 1873. Early pastoralists and stockmen developed new cattle handling techniques that suited the territory's unusual conditions, with teams of stockmen working in mustering camps, where they stayed for a few days or a few weeks to muster cattle into an open area to then handle them. Bullocks were drafted off the mob so they could be delivered to the drover who walked them to market or to be fattened interstate. Stockmen bronco branded calves, first by roping them and pulling them to a tree using a bronco horse or mule. Later it became common to build bronco panels inside an inexpensive wire bronco yard. Working cattle this way required great skill both on horseback and on the ground. Since the 1960s, branding yards and panels have been gradually replaced by portable steel yards, helicopter mustering and road trains. We then pass through Timber Creek that takes its name from the stream of the same name, which A.C. Gregory of the North Australian Expedition named in November 1855, when examining the Victoria River and seeking timber to repair his boat Tom Tough. In 1996, the Department of Defence purchased much of Bradshaw Station, a large cattle property in the vicinity of Timber Creek, bounded by the Victoria River to the south, Joseph Bonaparte Gulf to the west, and the Fitzmaurice River to the north, that subsequently became the Bradshaw Field Training Area, a 8,700 square kilometre live fire training facility. Then, in 2002, the 270-metre-long Bradshaw Bridge across the Victoria River was opened, providing road access to the training area from the Victoria Highway, with restricted access allowing only Australian Defence Force vehicles to cross the bridge. It certainly was a great place to see the mighty expanse of the Victoria River. Not only was I fascinated by the solitary jabiru, the iconic black-necked stork, the country's only stork species, but also the boab trees. Endemic to Australia, boabs occur in the Kimberley region of Western Australia and east into the Northern Territory. There are various theories as to how the tree got to Australia, as it is the only boab to occur in Australia, the others being native to Madagascar and mainland Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. We had passed a couple of rest areas where signs showed that people had been parked up for more than 24 hours, and I often wonder about people as the areas are not policed and only relying on people's own integrity. I suppose they think it's okay to stay longer. I think that travellers don't fully understand the difference between the three types: motorists for general and recreational vehicles, heavy vehicles exclusively for heavy vehicles only, and combined motorist and heavy vehicle rest areas with designated areas for trucks and general and recreation vehicles. We were stopped by major roadworks that were being carried out on the approaches to East Baines River, where extensive flood damage had occurred. The long floodways gave us some indication of the amount of water that flows through the area. We then crossed West Baine River, a major tributary of the Victoria River, with long alluvial floodplains either side of the river. Augustus Gregory named the Baines River in November 1855 after Thomas Baines, the storekeeper in his exploration party. We were again travelling along the edge of a floodplain, bordered by rocky ranges with some stunning outcrops. We had passed through a Verney station comprising forested country with open floodplains well covered in Mitchell and Flinders grasses, as well as Red Loam River and coastal floodplains. The station shares a boundary with Bulloo River Station to the north and Newry to the west that is said to comprise black soil plains, forest and stony ridge country. It really was an amazing area to be travelling through. On our travels west, we have stopped at a couple of rest areas. The first was about 100 kilometres west of Katherine at Matheson, then Saddle Creek, a further 300 kilometres west, and again at Allan Callet rest area. The stunning scenery around Saddle Creek in the locality of Baines would have to be the standout of the three, though only the first two provided a free overnight camping area with tables, non-potable water and drop toilets. Because of the long distances between towns, the Department of Transport in the Northern Territory has set out to provide adequate rest areas, giving travellers the opportunity to pull over and have a break, with 11 stops, 6 with overnight camping allowed along the Victoria Highway between Katherine and the West Australia border. You can find them all listed in the Northern Territory Government website under Driving and Transport, which I found really interesting. Quite often when we have stopped, the rest areas have information boards with details on the surrounding area, the Aboriginal history and cultural attractions of the area. A very helpful initiative, though some do need upgrading. Just one of those surprising things about the Northern Territory. We saw cattle, often hidden in the long grasses quite some distance from the highway, but they did look in good condition. The area is used for both breeding and live export to Asian markets. We were now travelling through country typified by red spinifex ridges, black basalt rocky plains and savanna. We crossed Basalt Creek that drains areas within pastoral leases like Waterloo and Newry stations and flows into the larger Victoria River system. With well-managed grazing, like most areas we had travelled through, it would be such a shame to see this type of native country cleared, destabilising the soil for other agricultural pursuits. As we neared the West Australian border, we had seen a couple of signs relating to quarantine of products. Some plants, plant products and animals that pose a high risk of carrying diseases or becoming a pest or weed may not be allowed into the state, and we had checked the website for details of what to carry and what not to carry. We were quite happy to have the boat and Gidget have their biosecurity check. Still, we lost a full unopened bag of washed potatoes, even though we had been told by other travellers that we could take them across. In the big scheme of things, it didn't worry us, as we were quite happy to follow the quarantine restrictions, and the inspector was great to talk to, and I learnt why we had to lift the bed for him to check underneath. Apparently a regular hiding place for quarantine items. As we crossed the border, we were now entering the Shire of Wyndham, East Kimberley, covering an area of around 118,000 square kilometres at West Australia's north-eastern corner. Rick and I were looking forward to exploring this large, diverse area with rugged ranges, huge rivers, iconic national parks, large cattle stations, and where agriculture is driven by the Ord River irrigation scheme. Kununurra is located at the far northeastern extremity of the Kimberley region, situated among the scenic hills and ranges, having an abundance of fresh water retained by the Ord River Diversion Dam and the main Ord River Dam. The town was built on land resumed from Ivanhoe Station pastoral lease before 1961 and was initiated to service the Ord River irrigation scheme. The town is located close to the confluence of the Ord and the Denham rivers. After having to make a detour along Ord River Channel 1 that gravity feeds 15,500 hectares of farmland on the Ivanhoe Plain and past the pump house, we finally reached the Discovery Park where we were to camp overlooking Lake Kununurra, a man-made freshwater reservoir on the Ord River formed by the diversion dam. The lake stretches for 55 kilometres from the Ord River irrigation area to the diversion dam and is a key part of the Ord River irrigation scheme. Once we had set up, we went into town to pick up some groceries, but found IGA very disappointing, although we did get what we were after. Rick and I certainly knew we were in the peak of tourist season, as finding a park was difficult, even without Gidget. Later that afternoon, we made our way out to Ivanhoe Crossing, past considerable irrigated crops. Crossing the Ord River Channel at Ivanhoe Crossing was one of Rick's bucket list items. Originally part of the vital main Darwin to Wyndham Beef Road, it really is a dramatic crossing. The iconic concrete causeway was constructed in about 1953-54 to raise and improve an existing basic causeway built around 1930. Rick was interested in driving across, even though the crossing itself is wide and the current from the river very strong. Estuarine crocodiles can be seen here as well. I was just happy to remain on dry land and take photographs as Rick took the boat across and back over the crossing. When the water level is just below the top of the bollards in the middle of the crossing, the depth is about 40 centimetres. After enjoying our time at the crossing, watching others cross, we made our way back to Gidget. Rick and I will leave you here at Lake Kununurra as we watch the sun set. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Give us a thumbs up if you have. Join us next time as we make our way to Pentecost River and on to Wyndham. Stay safe and enjoy life. Cheers for now. Rick and Rosemary. R&R, living life.